As I awake from my deep sleep, I find myself alone in this dark house. I find that being alone in this place can be quite scary, so I run out into the forest in hopes to find someone. I arrive in a clearing of a dreary forest. As I look around, despair filled my emotional capacity. Corpses of the people I held dear are scattered, and in the center stands a tall, foreboding shadow. With sorrow taking over my emotions, fear is not allowed in. I turn my gaze to the beautiful blue glass moon under the crimson air. The shadow blocks my view, and before I know it, I lose consciousness. Tsukihime is a 2000 adult visual novel developed by Type Moon and written by Kinoko Nasu. Being the first visual novel by Type Moon and one of the best-selling visual novels of its time, what are the reasons behind its popularity and why it is remembered by many fans to this day? Tsukihime follows the protagonist Shiki Tono. 8 years prior to the current events, he was caught in a life-threatening accident that has caused him to be disinherited by his family. Not only that, but that accident gave Shiki a new power, the mystic eyes of death perception. These allow Shiki to see the death of any object in the form of lines. Whether they are living or not, tracing these lines will bring it to its death. 8 years of being away from the Tono household, while living out his high school days, Shiki is suddenly called back to his family's mansion. Meanwhile, the town Shiki lives in contains a serial killer that leaves his victims drained of their blood. What follows is the mystery behind Shiki's past, the secrets of the Tono family, and a world he never knew existed. The story contains 5 routes split into 2 main storylines, the near side of the moon and the far side of the moon. The near side of the moon contains the routes of Arguid, Brunstad, and Ciel. This side of the story focuses on the world Shiki never knew existed. Having been caught in a situation he can't get out of, Shiki is forced to help the vampire Arguid find the killer plaguing the town. In doing so, learns about the world of vampires, the church, and the depth and the meaning of his mystic eyes. The far side of the moon contains the routes of Tono Akiha, Shiki's sister, and the Tono maids Hisui and Kohaku. This side focuses on the secrets of the Tono family and more about Shiki's past. The way these storylines are divided allow the concepts and its characters to be explored without having the plot be too convoluted and seem unnatural. As you progress through each route, they continuously build off of each other. With each choice you make, you learn more behind the overall mystery, and by the end of it, the puzzle perfectly fits together. The themes each route covers is meaningful and usually dark, covering topics of insanity, rape, and the sense of losing oneself. These subjects are covered in a meaningful way, and are not just there to make the story dark for the sake of being dark. So far, I only found 3 major problems within the story. One of them is how the beginning of each route gets somewhat repetitive. You feel as if you were just treading through familiar events you've already experienced for the first few days of each route. Another problem some may have with the story is exposition. Whenever something is explained, it is done in great detail. While this is great for people that want to learn as much as they can about the world and its characters, some may find it boring as it can take 5 to 10 minutes to explain what something is. My biggest personal issue with the story was how the lead up to the epilogue of each route suffers from being a bit anticlimactic. This is especially apparent in the near side routes, while the far side isn't as bad, still suffers from this at some points in the story. This is mostly due to the climax not lasting as long as it should, and skipping to the epilogue when there should be more downtime. While some moments are anticlimactic and can be a bit repetitive, the characters serve to alleviate these issues and immerse you into the mystery. Almost every character except for 2 or 3 are completely fleshed out with interesting backstories and motivations. Throughout each heroine's respective route, you see their interaction with Shiki and how the story changes them over time. Even later routes build upon previously established characters. My personal favorites have to be the 2 maids, Hisui and Kohaku. They were very unique characters, and how they interacted with Shiki and their development in their individual routes was touching and surprising. Shiki was also a very intriguing and complex character. In the beginning, he is just your average teenager. He's quite lazy and just wants to live a normal life. But as the story progresses, the way his mental state wears down and the way he slowly starts to go insane due to the situations he is put in makes you worried and gets you drawn into his character. All the characters are likable and their chemistry with each other makes their conversations enjoyable. which is why even exposition scenes are entertaining. The main villain was just as interesting as everyone else. His role in both storylines play an amazing part in the development of every character within the story. The only one I was disappointed with was Netto Chaos. I found him to be an insanely interesting character, but sadly he didn't get much time in the actual story. And while this game has substance, the presentation isn't the best. The art throughout this game is quite dated. The characters look a bit rough at times, and the backgrounds are just a photo with a blue or red filter over it. Going into it is definitely a bit jarring to look at and takes a short while to get used to. Even though it feels unnatural at first, the background filters are used to help set up the atmosphere. The blue filter is calming and fits well with the more relaxing and slice-of-life moments of the story, but whenever it changes, the mood immediately tenses up, making the unnatural feeling feel natural. The soundtrack can be very hit or miss. This is because there's a total of 10 tracks, 9 if you exclude the outro song, throughout a 30 to 40 hour visual novel. Most of the time, you'll be listening to overplayed songs or complete silence. The music that is present ranges from average to beautiful. Tracks 7 and 8 often distracted me from the story just because of how well it fit into the moment and the memories it built up over time. The other tracks help set the mood and do it well. Even though there's a small amount of tracks, there are some that definitely start to grow on you. Overall, Tsukihime is a game that has a fascinating story and characters, but is lacking in terms of presentation. The underperforming art, small selection of music, and the minor problems in the story are some aspects that need to be worked on and can easily be fixed with the remaster. However, the pros heavily outshine the cons, by bringing a well-constructed narrative, interesting mysteries, likable and fleshed out characters, along with some amazing tracks that add a slew of emotions into the story. This earned Tsukihime a 7.25 out of 10. If you are familiar with other Type Moon works such as Fate Stay Night or Kara no Kyokai, with them being in the same world as Tsukihime focuses on many familiar aspects. So if you enjoyed those series or are a fan of psychological horror/mystery, I highly recommend giving this visual novel a try. However, this story is dark and touches on many aspects people may be uncomfortable with, such as death, rape, and insanity. For people sensitive towards such subjects, I recommend to skip over this visual novel. I thoroughly enjoyed Tsukihime from start to finish. As someone who is heavily invested into the Nasu-verse, I found the plot twist and many aspects of the story to be very interesting, and it kept me immersed in the story. One aspect I found unique was being in the mind of someone slowly losing their sanity. Seeing Shiki's thought process while trying to keep himself under control was something that made me worry for him and the others involved. I also loved his relationship with Arcueid. The chemistry between the two made their interactions very entertaining. While Arcueid was the most fun character, my favorite route and character arc has to be Hisui's. The unique dynamic between her and Kohaku was very interesting, and her own personal story was very heartbreaking. The characters were my favorite part of the story. Everyone was just as interesting as the other, which made even the slow parts of the story engaging. Tsukihime was an amazing ride. If you enjoy other works by Type Moon and Kinoko Nasu, or are looking for an amazing psychological horror/mystery, I highly recommend giving this visual novel a try. Well, hope you enjoyed. My next video will be a review of Psycho Pass. Thanks for watching. Later.